7 names, no games as I run it down the line. We got Kenny Ken, put 100 on the tees with the streak for the cash. ESPN, Seth Curry with the shot. The prodigy. In reality, he's more like Seth, but he's all we got. Up next is Gentleman Jack, better known as Junior Blue. We told him not to do it anyway, but he did what he do. To his right is Devin, that dude, Eldad or Dirt Ass Dan. Just don't ask him a question, cause then he'll answer your question with another question, and then he'll add another question on top of that question. Damn. And I'm Red O, the Buck Wild Problem Child.
Flow Butter, aka John Cutter.
It's the league ambassadors, and we playing to win. At the 2-yard line, and make no mistake, we running it in. Pete Carroll, we see you.
Thank you for visiting 32 Kings Road, hosted by the League Ambassadors. I'm Ambassador Kenny Ken, and it is my pleasure to be here today with my brothers. This is episode 31, season 2 of our show, and we are back from our bye week. We're actually in a new studio home, and we're just bouncing off the walls here. I can hear it.
Definitely can hear it.
On today's show, we've got the final 2 combatants in our NFL International Series preview, the Minnesota Vikings, Cleveland Browns. They'll be battling at Twickenham Stadium this Sunday, and we'll discuss who should be on the Mount Rushmore of those 2 franchises, as well as preview their upcoming game. We've also got our Brexit bootback winner for the week, some NFL hot topics, and game picks. As a reminder, you can follow us everywhere on social media. Our handle is @TheLeagueAM. Let's get this show started with some show business. Ambassador Dad, what you sipping on, brother?
Well, before we get into what I'm sipping on, I lost a bet, so there we have it. I don't know what you're looking for. I'm sure you're about to.
No, I'm not.
Sure.
You good?
So a couple weeks ago, the Ravens played the Bears, and I bragged on the show that we beat the shit out of them, and the loser would have to take a 5-second shot of a specific
wanted 10
drink.
seconds.
Yes, I'm glad that that isn't the case. So what I'm sipping on is that White Rabbit.
Wait, is the tag still on the Hennessy?
Yeah. Ralph's. So I gotta take 5 seconds of this.
Uh-oh. I got you, Dev. I'm gonna count fast.
All right.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lord, have mercy.
Said, I got this. Give me the real 5.
Jesus, Lord. Junior Blue, what you sipping on? Let's move fast. Whoa.
First off,
he feeling it.
I'm sipping on
He making
World
life
Series.
decisions right now.
Dodgers.
Let's go, Dodgers.
Go Dodgers.
No,
Low
go
Dodgers.
Fuck the Dodgers.
And also,
Fuck your esophagus.
He just
hey,
did.
I want to send a shout out to the LA Sentinel and them putting on the Taste of Soul this weekend. It was awesome. If you guys haven't gone to the event, you need to. They shut down Crenshaw. They have a lot of performers, a lot of good food. It's a LA staple now. You got to go.
All right.
It's a great time, man. I've been there.
Look at Junior Blue showing some LA love all the way through and through.
Civic pride.
Kev, you can't help your brother. What you sipping on?
We can't take any more L's this season, Dev. Well, look, because I have to be at work in about 8 hours, I'm sipping on this good old-fashioned H2O. But I did notice that Sunday night's game between the Falcons and the Patriots did present an unintentional opportunity for the NFL. Because of the fog that took over the stadium, they were forced to broadcast the game with the Madden camera angle behind the line of scrimmage, so you could pretty much see everything. And I think the NFL, whether they have to make some type of technological updates, should really take advantage of that, because to me it was interesting to watch the game from that angle. And with ratings dipping and a declining product on the field, this could be something they benefit from.
Great point, Kev. Great point. All right. We're 8-6-1, so we're still over 500 with these teases. I'm sipping on water because I need to go 3-0 this week. Otherwise, Jimmy the henchman is going to come and pick me up. So let's go with Minnesota and Cleveland. You got two bad offenses, we don't know who's going to be at the quarterback. Minnesota's got a really good defense, and if you've been paying attention, Myles Garrett is getting off. So tease that game line of 38 up 7-45 and take the under. Then we've got New England versus the Los Angeles Chargers. This game is in New England. West Coast team flying back east. New England is favored to win by 7. Tease that spread down 7 to nil or even and pick New England to win. And then finally, Carolina and Tampa Bay. I feel like every week there's a new team who we just talk about their defense being trash. This week it's Tampa Bay. They're, I believe, 29th ranked in defense.
Last week, the week before.
Buffalo, right. Buffalo, who has no receivers, and just Tyrod Taylor put up 30-plus on them. Take that line of 44, tease it down 7 to 37, and then take the over. So we've got Carolina and Tampa Bay taking the over. We've got New England tease that game line down, or spread line down 7 for them to win. And then the under in Minnesota and Cleveland, put $100 down. Thank the league ambassadors. We are going to rebound this week. Finally, Red O, what are you sipping on, sir?
Sipping on this pineapple Ciroc. Shout out to Diddy. With a little Canada Dry Ginger Ales off the chain. It's a nice cocktail. Speaking of Diddy, on our
slick.
That's what we do, baby. On our October 10th show, towards the end of the show, Junior Blue mentioned the thought that Diddy should start his own league. Unbeknownst to him, that same day, Diddy had a tweet where he said he had a dream. He always had a dream of owning a team, but now he thinks he should own his own league. With everything that's going on in the league today, with the protest, with declining ratings, President Trump, or number 45, the NFL is a little vulnerable. So we're going to play What If today. What if Puffy did start his own league? What would it look like? So I'm going to come up with a framework, and then we go from there. So first, you got to go holler at some people. First person I think he should go holler at is Oprah. And there's a reason why I think he should holler at Oprah, but he got to get her on board. Then he goes holler at 2 other people. One is Jay-Z with Tidal, because he needs him on board too. Then the last person is Condoleezza Rice. And that's my curveball.
I know where you're going with that.
Exactly. Then he got to lock himself in a room with Oprah and convince her that, because I don't think,
sounds like kidnapping.
This is what she wants to do. But he has to convince her that Revolt and On TV, her station, needs to combine and form a third station with a partnership with Bleacher Report and start their own sports network. So now you got 3 stations. That's 3 stations where you can air games on, right? Mm-hmm. So now you're in the sports market. And we already know ESPN is vulnerable. So now they have cornered one market. Then after you have that, you can actually grab some stations that are staples that don't air sports. Say TNT, TBS. TBS airs baseball, sometimes NASCAR, but TNT doesn't air sports.
Basketball.
Okay, you're right about that. They don't air football. You can grab a couple other stations if you want more than just 3, right? Besides local stations. After that, you need the money. So it's one word, I think, one name everybody in here is familiar with because we all watch the show. He needs to go find every Bobby Axelrod that he can find.
Shout out to Billions.
Shout out to the hedge fund game.
Billions on Showtime. It's a great show. So Bobby Axelrod represents every young, brash billionaire who runs a hedge fund that the NFL doesn't deem good enough to own a team. Those young cats who are outlaws.
What about Mark Cuban?
I mean, Mark Cuban is in the NBA. It's going to be hard to cross his money with that. So he can go get Mark Cuban. Well, that's another thing we talk about. Let me get through this.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me get through this.
Preach.
So he needs about 5 Bobbies. So Mark Cuban could be one of them. But he needs 5. Because everybody, if they really want to do it right and they really want to challenge, they got to bring $2 billion apiece, which is a lot of money to invest. So that's a $10 billion startup fee, startup money. After you get the money, then it's the infrastructure. And here's the thing. The Chargers just showed everybody that the infrastructure is already there. Major League Soccer built stadiums all over the United States. There's 22 Major League Soccer stadiums in the United States. They don't need to sell 63,000 seats. If they can sell out 23,000 seats in 22 stadiums, they already showing enough right there. So they don't even need infrastructure right away. So they don't need that money for that. Then after infrastructure, then you need to attract top-tier talent. This is why you need the $10 billion. Because you need, not only do you need top-tier players, you need top-tier coaches. So what you do is you overpay for certain top-tier coaches to get them to come because you need those names. You overpay for certain top-tier players. But then you tier the pay system. So you got tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1, the automatics. Those are the cats who get guaranteed contracts, the guaranteed 3-year contracts. Then tier 2. And tier 1s, they can, if they play long enough and hit certain incentives, they can probably earn equity into the league. Tier 2, those are cats with semi-guaranteed contracts with the incentive to earn fully guaranteed contracts. Tier 3 is the cats who just getting drafted. You don't know what they are. They can earn up to tier 2 and then tier 1. So you got incentives to play and play long and play well. After that, the next is marketing. There's no better marketer than Puffy. That's what he does. If you need eyes on something, that's what Puffy does. And then after that, you make it the fun league. It ain't the no fun league anymore. Touchdown celebrations. You have rewards for the best touchdown celebrations every year. You let them bring props. You make it the free football league. And we go from there.
How many teams?
That's the discussion. How many you think?
Kev, I think you were trying to chime in.
Yeah, I was just going to say the only avenue he missed was broadcasting. Just get Jamel Hill and Michael Smith to do color commentary.
Gus.
Hey,
we got
that's part of that Bleacher Report station.
And Omar will have his Negro Football League.
Free football league, baby.
I mean, I think the way that you really can pull this off, all that is a lot of what ifs. But if you can guarantee everyone's contract, that's how you make the move. Because right now, I mean, it's going to be seen as a lower tier. It's going to be like the XFL or the World League. Mm-hmm. It's got to be serious. You actually need buy-ins from actual stars that are willing to sacrifice.
That's why you need the money.
Right. But if you can guarantee contracts, and by the way, I'm drunk off of that.
I'm not even going. That was an SOS right there. Somebody save me right now, because I can't get past guaranteed contracts.
I can't. I'm just. It's a disclaimer.
It's a disclaimer. Here's my thing, man. My thing is what would be the motivation if you have that sort of money? If you're a Diddy, if you're an Oprah, what's the motivation for wanting to sort of, create a new lane for a product that, just talking about the product itself of football, it's not the most popular. So my question would be, what would be their motivation for wanting to do it?
Not most popular where?
It's the popularity of the sport of football is declining in America.
But it's still number one sport in America.
Right, but it's when I say it, but the main reason why it's not popular, well, we're going to talk a little bit later about what could be some other reasons, but one of the larger ones is sort of the safety issue, right? And so and now let's bring it on home. We're talking about basically, as Kevin said, a Negro league, a black league.
This is America, bro. Like, we like the train wrecks. we like that. I'm dead ass. I'm dead ass though. So I mean, But granted, they have those safety issues, but people will still watch.
Right, but for a luminary such as Oprah or Diddy to basically endorse or create a product that is admittedly killing people, and let's face it, if this league were to be created, it's going to be predominantly.
Well, I met Oprah, and she signed on to some projects that still don't let people get off. So money is money.
Well, I think to answer your question, Kenyon, whether or not Omar's or Devin's questions about the logistics happen, the purpose behind it, at least in my eyes, is for us to create our own lane. I mean, history and even the present shows that everyone's benefited off of black labor except for black people. So I think the purpose, whether it be a football league or not, I think intended to create spaces where we can work for ourselves, we can put on for ourselves, where somebody like Jamel Hill doesn't get suspended for telling the truth, where Colin Kaepernick can stand up for the community he comes from without being penalized for it. I think at the end of the day, that's the intention. Like, we have to, in any other industry, we have to provide spaces where we can be us and not have to worry about ownership, coming down and controlling labor. That's what this whole
Like Black Wall
anthem
Street.
thing is turned into.
Right. So
Black
even
Wall Street.
right.
They started with a patch of grass.
So my question would be, you're sending that message even at the expense of social responsibility when you talk about the downside of playing football.
The social.
I personally wouldn't advocate for it, just because, like you mentioned, we see where the league is going.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea, like Omar brought up, the idea that we control our own labor. Even if you look back at the strike the NFL had in '87, where players were fighting over free agency, they literally wanted the right to play where they wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
So guys decided not to play, and you had replacement players who stepped in
Right.
to fill that void to keep the league going. Now, people may celebrate them for, hey, they filled in and kept the league going. But at the same time, they did the original players an injustice by basically siding with ownership. But at the end of the day, in the long run, was the players ended up getting what they wanted. So I think the big idea here is that we need to control labor. And like what Omar said, if we pose a threat that we can have our own, then maybe you have a bargaining chip here.
Well said. Well said. Let us move to Moments in Hendek, which is our history segment. And with apologies to the Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams, we just completely bypassed them. Not because we wanted to, but we had
Current events.
here.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Good thing anyway.
yeah. But we did touch on the first part of this series with the Minnesota Vikings and the Cleveland Browns, where we talked about similarities and we talked about past playoff disappointments and failures. The Minnesota Vikings, Cleveland Browns were also the participants in the last NFL championship game before the NFL-AFL merger. Today we want to look at discuss who should be on the Mount Rushmore for these two franchises. We will start with the Cleveland Browns.
Get it out, Kim. Get it out.
We will start with the Cleveland Browns, and let's just say off top that all of us have basically Jim Brown, Joe Thomas, Otto Graham on our list. But Omar, Les, and Kevin, their fourth members, they were all some unique, interesting choices. We'll start with Kevin. Kevin, who the hell is Doug Dykin? And why is he on Mount Rushmore for Cleveland?
I'm surprised you guys don't know who old Dougie Fresh is. Look, he played tackle for the Browns from 71 to 84. He was elected to one Pro Bowl in 1980, but he makes my Mount Rushmore because after retiring from the Browns, he decided to be the team's radio color analyst. And look, I've watched the Ravens for 3 weeks, and I'm already basically planning to kill myself. This guy has been watching every Brown snap for the last 33 years voluntarily. If anybody deserves to be honored as a hero, it's Doug Dykin. Give him his props.
You know what, Kev? Golf clap for you, sir. Golf clap for you, sir.
Mr. Dyke.
Well, along those same lines, and we're going to balance this out. We're not going to go with all oddballs. Before we go to the next oddball, which Omar has someone named Tim Brokaw. But before we go there, to piggyback off of what Kevin's talking about, one of the mainstays that we all agree that should be on the Mount Rushmore is Mr. Joe Thomas. And we're actually going to talk about, his streak a little bit later on. But, along those same lines, I mean, this man has been toiling.
Say it.
Laboring.
Say it.
He has gave his body for a terrible franchise. And
Let the congregation say.
Amen.
And he is a legit first ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah,
right?
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. I mean, just think about this. He's been in the league for 10 years. Mm-hmm. He is a 9 times All-Pro. Yep. I mean, he's dominant. He's there. He was there every play until Sunday.
Until he wasn't.
Until he wasn't. So I mean, it's just it's crazy. Just like the announcer Dykeman, Or Daikin, my
Daikin.
bad.
Daikin.
He was there through some pretty horrible times and about 150 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And the fact that I think you were alluding to it, like he could have left.
Yeah.
Yes.
He decided to stay, and he
Nah, I want more.
right. Yeah, he's a was it?
He's a sadomasochist.
Sadomasochist.
He's a sadomasochist.
So when I was doing my research for my Mount Rushmore for them, it's a lot of older cats. He's the best great player they've had in the last 30 years. So you gotta put him in there.
That's a great point. Man, that's a bad franchise.
I mean, he's
Hey,
in the
now they
NFL
are.
with a circle of honor.
Period. All right, Red Oak. Tim Brokaw. Who the hell is Tim Brokaw? And why should he be on Cleveland's Mount Rushmore?
First of all, I just want to see what he did on Carved in Stone. Tim Brokaw of Brokaw Advertising is the man who created the jersey. The one with all the quarterbacks on the Can you imagine how dope that carved in stone with all the names coming down the whole mountain?
Hey, and Kenyon was like, "How can we do a Mount Rushmore around? Easy work,
Real easy.
Hey, we halfway there.
Wow. That's good.
That's good.
That's good.
That's good shit.
Jim Brown. I mean,
Easy work.
Jim Brown
Here's Jim Brown.
is Jim Brown. He is Mr. Brown, which is funny because Paul Brown, Jim Brown, who I think 4 out of 5 of us had Paul Brown as, or 3 out of 5 of us had Paul Brown as the fourth member. We'll talk about him. But Mr. Jim Brown is, I mean,
He is friends with your boy though, Ray Lewis.
It's, all right, so we're not going to talk about Mr. Jim Brown, but all right, now we know about all of his football accolades, but the thing that I want to talk about is everybody's grandfather always says that Jim Brown is the greatest football player. Everybody's grandfather, everybody. But he's also probably one of the greatest athletes to ever live. Like,
Easy work.
If you look at his college career, in his sophomore year, he was the second leading scorer for the Syracuse basketball team.
basketball team.
Yeah, he ran track. He was 5th place in the decathlon in track, and then he's second team All-American in lacrosse.
They said he might be the greatest lacrosse player ever.
And he decided to play football.
And he played football.
9 seasons.
Yep.
He led the league in rushing 8 of his 9 years. Let me say that again. He led the league in rushing 8 of his 9 years. Number 2 on that list is a 4-way tie between OJ, Eric Dickerson, Barry Sanders, and Emmitt Smith. Wow. They have 4. Damn. He did it 8 times.
He did 8 times.
Wow.
He's special. He was one of those, when you talk about, when you want to sort of create a player, Jim Brown is one of those
And he
create a
was
player
violent
prototypes.
runner.
6'2", 232 back then.
Yeah, 6'2", 232 back then, and was faster
And was
than
a track
everybody.
star.
Yeah.
And 3 NFL MVPs.
He's a lab
well,
creation.
3. Is it NFL?
Yeah, it would be NFL. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Les had an oddball before we go to Mr. Otto Graham. His was Ozzie Newsome, which Ozzie Newsome, talented tight end,
Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
Hall of Famer. Why is he on the Mount Rushmore, Les? For Cleveland.
Because he's the greatest executive they ever had. He won 2 Super Bowls.
Oh shit.
Oh, here we go.
He won 2 Super Bowls.
Tricky Dick showed up. Tricky Dick
Come
showed
on
up.
now. I mean, think about that.
He is.
Think about that.
He is the best. And he's
just
hands
saying.
down.
Hands down. Ain't nobody better than him.
I'm with you, Junior Blue.
Nuances. It's all about the nuances.
Hey Kev, we suck, but we sure did beat the fucking Raiders.
Yes, EJ Manuel.
Doesn't fucking matter.
Yes.
Doesn't matter.
Les, I'll give you this. That car didn't start up at first, but once it got you brought it home.
You brought it home. That's pretty funny.
Wow.
That's a good dig. Okay, Otto Graham. One of the most dominant quarterbacks, especially dominant quarterbacks of his era.
Yep.
Should be on the list. What you got about Mr. Otto Graham, Kev?
Wow, you just No, look that one. Well, he was with Cleveland back in the day, from 46 to 1955, I believe was his last season. His number 14 jersey is retired. He is a 7-time champion, although their championships back then were different from how the Super Bowl is. He actually made the championship game every season he played in. He never missed a game. His career record is 114, 20, and 4, which is the highest quarterback win percentage in the history of
81%.
ever.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and he also still holds the record for pass yards per attempt, which you could imagine back then they weren't throwing the ball as much as they are now, and he still holds that record.
Well, not only does he have pass yards per attempt, pass yards per game. He got both of them.
Wow.
Still to this day.
To this day. He played in the 40s. Everybody throws the ball today.
Yeah.
And it's still Otto Graham.
It's still Otto Graham. And one little tidbit about him, like Dion, he also won multiple championships in multiple sports. He won a ship in the NBL, which later became the NBA.
That just means you old, Jack.
Hey, you play sports? Come on, let's get it.
Get off work, go play sports.
How bad is that franchise that their best quarterback was 62 years ago?
I mean, how bad is the franchise? Their best.
He's one of the best players in the history of NFL,
listen,
though. So
Sid Luckman.
Right.
I'm not even tripping.
There you go.
Mr. Paul Brown, final member. We'd be remiss if we did not talk about him. I mean, he is the reason why the Cleveland Browns are named the Cleveland Browns. Interesting.
We talked about it last year.
Yeah, interesting thing, though. He wasn't comfortable with the Browns being named because of him. And for a long time, actually, he would tell people that the Cleveland Browns were actually named after Joe Louis, who was the Brown Bomber, which was a lie.
They're not naming it after no Negro.
Let's be politics.
Right.
It's an untruth.
It's an untruth. But Paul Brown,
fake news.
I mean, he was the creator. I mean, in those days, oftentimes owners, coaches, GMs, like that was the role that Paul Brown had. He had a lot of success, the most success that the franchise has actually ever seen.
I mean, think about it. If he came along a little bit later, the Lombardi Trophy might be named after him.
Yep.
For the amount of success that he had.
Yep. Absolutely.
So 77% win percentage back then. And he's by far the all-time winningest coach in Browns history. Like, it's not even close.
Right. Otto Graham has something to do with that, as well as later on Jim Brown. Minnesota Vikings. This one's interesting. We've got some discrepancies here. I think we don't even have a consensus, actually. I think Bud Grant and Randy Moss has the most. We'll start with Randy Moss because the freak that's fun. Junior Blue, why is Randy Moss on the Minnesota Vikings?
Pull up his YouTube highlights. I mean, it's 15 minutes long. I mean, as a rookie, he set the record for touchdowns, 17 touchdowns. I mean, just his time. He spent 7 years in Minnesota, and he made 5 Pro Bowls, 3 times the All-Pro. I mean, he was dominant. There was nobody that could cover him. They had to employ a safety over the top all the time, and he still beat them. I mean, he was dominant.
I think that, for me, I think the two biggest things is, he was one of those players that sort of fundamentally changed how defenses played defense, how they employed their defense. It was literally the safety is over the top, literally, of the corner. That's number one. The second thing is, which always stands out to me, is he had a cultural impact. I think that Randy Moss and Michael Vick, when you talk about late 90s, just at the turn of the century,
the Allen Iverson impact.
Exactly. Exactly. These guys. Exactly. That another example would be the Wolverines and the Fab Five, players that are able to take the sport to another level because of their impact culturally. And I think that Randy Moss. Yeah, Kev.
Yeah, say Randy's the reason I don't write checks anymore. Cash on
Straight cash.
But we want to talk about Randy Moss when he got to Minnesota, because as we know, he had a checkered history. going back to high school, even in college.
Yeah, Rand University. Check that documentary.
Rand
out.
University, exactly. Was that 30 for 30? Or
I don't
was
know
that
if it's a 30 for 30. I think it's just one of those.
Google.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, Rand University, great documentary. And actually, Randy Moss, he fell in the draft because he was a Heisman. He was
Hey,
a Heisman,
Dallas.
He was a Heisman finalist out of Marshall
Should have been
University.
88. Yeah.
He wanted to go to Dallas. A lot of teams though passed on him because
Dallas said they was going to take him.
he had a track record. Well, Jerry Jones, that's Mr. I tell you one thing and then I say something else over here.
Oh, hey.
Still doing it to this
Still
day.
doing it to this day. But anyway,
We call that shucking and jiving, by the way, on our side of town.
but
horse.
he got to Minnesota and there was an old head who understood what it meant to have a checkered past.
Huh.
What's his name?
Hey, don't you eating something? Hold on.
Well, I'm
He's leading into something.
I'm trying to set it up here. Chris Carter, who Omar and Dev, you guys had him on your Mount Rushmore for the Minnesota Vikings. Talk about the skill set of Mr. Chris Carter.
Well, before we get into that, Chris Carter, he got a draw with cocaine. He didn't win because cocaine's 99-0. But he got a draw.
Red O first.
And he was able to bring it back.
About it.
So once he got to Minnesota, the reason why because I didn't have Randy as my Mount Rushmore, I had Chris Carter because Chris Carter might not be the best receiver that the Vikings ever had, but he's the best career receiver that they ever had.
Yeah,
and he actually mentored Mr. Moss.
Mr. Moss. As Mount Rushmores go, Chris Carter has 12,383 yards for the Minnesota Vikings.
Just for them.
Yes. Randy Moss has 9,316 for the Minnesota Vikings with 92 touchdowns, and Chris Carter has 110 touchdowns. Like if you're gonna talk about Mount Rushmore for a team, now Randy Moss continued to play and continued to rack up numbers, but for the Minnesota Vikings, Randy Moss put up more numbers longer.
Chris Carter
Put up more numbers longer than Randy Moss.
Kev, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I had Chris Carter too over Randy Moss. But y'all talking about Chris Carter riding the white Bronco. Chris Carter. I have his mother named him Gradule Christopher Darren Carter, and that's the guy I picked.
What's the first name?
Gradule.
Spell it.
Graduel.
That might be Ule.
It can. Hey, it went
Bad
straight up
name
the nose.
baller.
And we didn't even know it.
What did he say?
I missed what Kev said.
What's important right
now? It was good.
No, in support of the argument, he still leads the team in receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns. So statistically, he is the Vikings' best receiver for the franchise, and he also did it for the culture. He played for under Warren Moon, Randall Cunningham, and Dante Culpepper. So you got to give it to him.
And he might have the sweetest set of hands ever to play receiver.
Yeah, he was definitely. It was I didn't like Chris Carter because I was a Jerry Rice fan, but between Chris Carter, Isaac Bruce, and Art Monk and Andre Rison, those four were all contemporaries statistically and competitively of Jerry Rice. They were definitely his peers, but I definitely respected Chris Carter's talent. The sideline out, the 8 to 15 yards, he's getting the toes down and the hands is out. Yes,
Man, my
yes.
used to talk about Art Monk like he was Jesus.
He was in DC.
All right, someone a little bit of a throwback. We've got I believe Omar and Dev, and I think Kevin also. Fran Tarkenton. Who wants to take a shot at Fran Tarkenton, Dev?
Yeah, I think you got to put him up there. When he retired, he had pretty much all the records. He retired as all-time TD, maker. He had 342, which was broken by Marino. That 420 mark, which was big forever. He had the most completions, most attempts, and the yards leader. And he has 9,000 more yards than the next Viking QB. So you have to go with that, and he's been mentioned as one of the best all-time rushing quarterbacks of all time. As far as yards go, he's fourth on the list, but the names in front of him are Randall, Cunningham, Steve Young, and Vic. Randall's number one, going in that reverse order. But he's also considered the best scrambling quarterback of all time. Not necessarily to scramble for yards, even though he was fourth, but to make plays down the field.
To keep plays alive, absolutely.
Yeah, they say that he's also one of the smartest quarterbacks ever if you look in the history of the game, because although he ran for that many yards and he scrambled to make plays, and I don't know if any of you ever took the time to watch his
highlight tapes.
My God,
it's retarded.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he also, at 77 years old, can still walk, and he was able to not take and absorb hits, and he doesn't have CTE.
It pays to scramble.
It pays to not get hit.
If you're smart. Now,
slide, young man, slide.
So aside from all that, I mean, he did play in 3 Super Bowls within the 70s when he was with the Vikings.
The interesting thing is, that he was traded. He was actually traded. He was drafted. He was drafted. Exactly. He was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. He got traded by Jim Finks, and then he was actually brought back in this. Kevin, you got something you want to add on Mr. Tarkenton?
I do. I just want to give his name justice, as we did Mr. Carter.
My God.
Francis Asbury Tarkenton. He did, like you guys mentioned, he did 2 stints in Minnesota. He came back home. And similar to Chris Carter, who went at the time of his retirement, he was second to Jerry Rice in receptions and touchdowns. When Tarkenton retired, he had the NFL record for passing yards, touchdowns, and interceptions. So he was throwing that thing, no matter who it went to.
So, okay, Omar and Les, let's fast forward here. You guys, and one of the arguments that was just made for against Randy Moss, favoring Chris Carter, was, sort of the longevity argument, and which is fair. But both of you guys have Adrian Peterson as someone that is on your Mount Rushmore for the Minnesota Vikings. I'll start with you, Junior Blue. Why is that? Why is AP on there?
Because he was dominant in his time. I mean, he was there. What was that? 10 years. Played 7-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler. Led the league in rushing. MVP, NFL MVP, NFL Offensive Player of the Year, 2,000 plus yards. I mean, he did everything you want a running back to do. Plus, he had 11,000 yards for them. Set the single game rushing record at 296. I mean, he did everything. There's no other runner you could put up there, and almost no other offensive player that outside of maybe Chris Carter or Randy Moss that could even compare to what he did as far as his time in Minnesota.
There are a couple defensive players you could have chose, but AP, his impact on Minnesota, where he shouldn't even been available when Minnesota picked him.
He had an injury history, so
if we redo that draft, but he was great for the time he was there. He was more. What's next after great?
Above it or below it?
He was Hall of Fame worthy for his time there.
Yeah. Speaking of defensive players, I know a few of us had Mr. Alan Page, who I believe is still to this day the only defensive. Oh no, there's been 2, LT being one of them. Mm-hmm. But he was the defensive NFL, or he was the NFL MVP from the defensive position. He was also a part of the legendary Purple People Eaters,
the best member,
the best member, Carl Eller, Jim Marshall. But Kevin had a different defensive player on the Mount Rushmore, a player who I was definitely a fan of, Mr. John Randall. Talk about Mr. Randall.
Well, as much as you were a fan of him, I was afraid of him. If you ever he retired in he retired in 2002. So I was a kid growing up as he was playing, but imagine ODB and Michael Clark Duncan having a baby. If you ever get a chance, just look up John Randall's trash talking. He is a crazy motherfucker on the football field. And it definitely turned into production. He was with the Vikings for 10 years. He was actually undrafted out of Texas A&M Kingsville. I don't know where that is.
It's in Kingsville.
Oh, well, there we go. He tortured Brett Favre. I mean, those epic battles in the 90s. And Favre is on record as saying John Randall's unblockable on turf. And you can see it by looking at his numbers. He was the first. Oh shoot! I'm sorry. I'm looking at Alan Page's stats. He a 7-time Pro Bowler, undrafted through that decade. with hey yo, stop laughing. I'm trying to scroll.
You drinking water, motherfucker. Water.
Hey, you ain't had it.
That was rubbing off on me. I'm sorry.
Osmosis.
But no, he was a great player who I think accomplished more than what many people thought he was going to coming out.
Right.
Bastards.
Hey, real quick, I know we got to move on, but going back to Alan Page real quick.
Yeah.
Like, I teetered with him and Randall. Mm-hmm. But the thing that got me is what he did during and after he finished his NFL career. Like while he was working in the NFL, he worked as an attorney on the off season.
Cool.
Alan Page.
Alan Page.
Yeah.
Alan Page. He received his Juris Doctorate in 1978. Mm-hmm. He was assistant attorney general in Minnesota, and he even got on the Associate Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court. First black man ever to do that.
Mr. Alan Page.
Yeah.
Straight
up.
Golf clap.
Yeah.
All right, Bud. Mr. Bud Grant. I think. Well, there was no other coach. No one had any coach. No executive.
Let him off the hook. Oh, nope.
No. No.
He was in Arizona at the
Rest
time.
in peace, though.
Yeah, you're right. Rest in peace.
Fuck him.
Mr. Bud Grant, he is the best coach by far in the history of the Minnesota Vikings franchise. The thing that's crazy about, ironic, I should say, about Mr. Bud Grant.
Ironic?
It's just ironic considering where we are right now and the climate that we are in today. This man was known as a no-nonsense coach. He didn't believe in showing emotion. And he also had a special sort of reverence for the national anthem. So much so that he would have national anthem practice where you needed to stand and they would practice the position and posture that they would have for the national anthem.
He's a World War II vet, right?
I don't think so.
That shit's still strange, though.
It was the most bizarre thing and also very interesting. He's also an avid hunter, and he got death threats because he was fighting with the Chippewas in Minnesota. This is like within the last 10 years.
So he's well-rounded.
He's
90 years old now.
He also was a baller. He got drafted into the NBA.
Won a championship with the Lakers.
Not the LA Lakers, though.
I didn't say the LA Lakers. I said the Lakers.
But he's also responsible for the national anthem piece was interesting, but he's also responsible, obviously, for the first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history, the first
and their last
NFL championship.
Alpha and Omega.
He was the coach during, like I said, the Purple People Eaters era. I mean, Mr. Bud Grant. Anybody else want to chime in on
0-4?
Well, he is Marv Levy's.
Marv Levy.
He's Marv Levy's idol.
He's on Minnesota's state Mount Rushmore. Right? Instead of going to, I forgot the other college, a better college that offered him a scholarship, he went to the University of Minnesota. Then he played for the Minnesota Lakers and won the championship with the Minnesota Lakers. You know, after he went to the CFL to play, he came back to Minnesota to coach with the Vikings. Like, he is a Minnesota.
He
did play for the Eagles for 2 years, but somewhere in there.
Right.
He also
he played Canadian Football League. So,
yeah.
He also was a man's man. He didn't have any heaters on the sideline. He used to make his
sleeves.
He used to make his players practice in the winter, in Minnesota's winter, intentionally to instill toughness. He
came out with short sleeves on negative 10 degrees.
He's a different type of cat. He's a different type of cat.
He chills at his own face.
After he used to walk to school backwards. Walk to school in a snowstorm.
All right, it's time for some football tea. Let's get to our hot topics here. Actually, yes. We've got to acknowledge our Brexit bootback winner. Thank you, Rena, for that. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about Mr. Martavis Bryant. Kevin, please take it away.
Gladly, sir. Well, Mr. Martavis Bryant has voiced his displeasure over the last few weeks about his role in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. To quote, I mean, I'm a team. Okay, anytime you start a sentence by saying,
I mean,
you don't mean it. But he goes on to say, I'm a team player. I'm not trying to act like I'm being selfish because I'm not being selfish. He says this right before he went after teammate Juju Smith-Schuster on Instagram post, responding to a fan saying, "Juju is nowhere near better than me, fool." What makes this even worse is that these comments are coming as the Steelers are winning football games. I can't seem to get my mind around this. But he's not selfish. I'll go on to quote Mr. Bryant, "I just want to help contribute. I just want to be the best player that I can be on and off the field. I want to be given the chance to be that. I would like for it to be here. If not, oh well, just got to move on. I just want mines. Mines.
Uh-oh.
Period. Point blank."
Hey, what did his coach say to that?
So just give me a second.
All right.
The only players on the Steelers roster that are targeted more than Mr. Bryant is Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. And according to Omar, they are two of the best players in the National Football League. So look, I get it. We get it. You want to have an impact. You want to show the world how great you are. Go tell your coach that. Go tell your quarterback that in private. Don't post it on social media. You're on a team that's tied for the best record in the conference. On a team that stood by you when you decided to smoke marijuana instead of pursue your career, which there's no problem with that, but I feel you, brother. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback that can get you the ball. You could be in New York with the Giants, or you can come to the Ravens where you're guaranteed to end up on the IR. So you kind of got to pick your battles here. And look, I never thought I would say this to a black man in America, but young brother, it's not going to get any better than where you are right now. So look, unless something's going on behind closed doors that the rest of us don't know about, sit your $5 ass down
Before you cancel that check.
Because Mr. Martavis Bryant, you are our Brexit Boot Bag Award winner for this week.
Yeah. Yes.
Knock it out the park, young brother. Knock it out.
Way to rock off on a Steeler.
Hey, you took that personal.
Real talk. I will pick him up from BWI tonight. Play for the Ravens.
Hey, same team. Same team.
And it's funny because it's like, I'm not selfish, but literally after making that
Mines,
statement,
plural.
Minds, which that blew, that blew my mind. But after making that statement, then he's like, "Oh, I'm not
Everything
sure.
he said was selfish.
I'm not showing up to work today."
But Kevin
he took a
started
day
off.
off.
He said, "When you start off by saying, I mean,
I'm a team player."
Hey, coach shut it down though, didn't he?
Yeah, he
He's
did.
not even on my radar.
Tomlin said, to be honest, he's not even on my radar. Oh, Mike Tomlin.
And it was real. Like,
Coach, I'll come play for you right now.
Everybody was like,
right
okay,
now.
he's right.
Yeah.
He's
Come
like,
see me.
Hey, they coming up. Detroit coming off a bye. That's what I'm worried about.
All right, now let's get to our football tea and hot topics. Listen here, folks. I mean, through
That mean you
7
don't mean
weeks. Right. I mean this, though, because it's documented. There are only 3 teams who are more than 2 games out of first place in their division: Cleveland, the Giants, and San Francisco. 7 out of the 8 teams in first place have 2 or more losses. I'm barely over 500 in my teases, and all of the ambassadors are within 1 game of each other in weekly game picks. The question I got for you guys is this parity or is this poor play in the NFL?
Ooh, put me in, coach.
Redo.
No T, no H. It's both.
there's parity. There's parity because there's poor play. I'll take it a step further. I think
That's funny.
I think it's poor play, which creates the parity because of injuries, and the injuries are created because of the CBA with the practicing. Although it's something that's health related that they need.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't hit someone until it's time to play, you're gonna get hurt, and that's what's happening.
John Madden, again, he said it. He said because of the CBA and the less practice time, that there will be 1, more injuries, 2, the games won't get interesting till week 5 or 6. He called it like, when was the CBA renegotiated? How long ago was that? He called it.
2012.
Kev?
No, I agree. I think that it's parity because of poor play. And in addition to what Devin mentioned, I also think at the end of the day, it comes down to money. There are so many NFL teams that are paying top dollar for not top tier quarterback play. Of the 11 highest paid quarterbacks in the league, take a wild guess. How many of them are on winning teams right now?
You said 11?
2.
Out of the 11, it's 4. That's the Saints,
Yep,
the
Drew
Steelers,
Brees.
the Packers,
Yep.
who that won't be lasting long,
And the Patriots.
I'm sorry, it's 5. The Seahawks and the Patriots.
Yeah.
So that's less than half. And when you have teams that put that much responsibility and that much of that salary cap on a quarterback, whether or not he's playing up to par or not, if you don't have a surrounding cast around him, you're doomed.
And see, that's why I said it was poor play. I mean, the records kind of speak for themselves, and it's fair to deduce that you could blame it on parity. But I'm squarely in the poor play corner, and it's for exactly what you said. The quarterback play has been. I mean, just this past Sunday, C.J. Beathard, Case Keenum, Mitch Trubisky, who granted is a rookie, only threw 7 passes. Okay, Deshaun Kaiser.
He only had to throw 7.
Deshaun Kaiser, and then you look at guys who have had success in the league like Cam Newton and Matt Ryan. Through 7 weeks, they're combined 15 touchdowns, 16 interceptions.
Yeah.
Then you look at Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, like these. It's bad, with the exception of Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and then you got the rookie Deshaun Watson that's playing well, and then also O-line. I think you start with those 2 things right there.
O-line,
Bad quarterback play
O-line.
and blocking has been, and it's bad football.
And it's crazy that they pay the quarterback so much money and then leave them hanging out to dry with bad offensive
Russell Wilson.
lines. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Leave them out.
He
Come on,
can't.
man.
He has 2 seconds. He has to throw the ball
real.
in 2 seconds.
It's a slant or a scramble.
I mean, Carson Palmer is
He's done.
We're almost finished.
we almost there. Kat, what you gonna say with something else?
We're turning the wagon. But I do think that teams have been able to get away with good quarterback play when they draft a guy and stick him out there right away. Like you look at the Ravens early on with Flacco, or the Falcons with Matt Ryan, Seahawks with Russell, even the Cowboys with Dak last year. They were able to get away with above average quarterback play by paying them a little bit of money, and then after those first 4 years, they got to pull out their checkbook to pay him, and then you lose that talent that kept him above water. So it comes back to the supporting cast. But just a correction on the comments we made: Tom Brady is not in the top 10, top 11 highest paid quarterbacks this
Under
season.
the table.
Right? He gets paid in other ways. But I mean, that's something you look at. And the Eagles, we talked about it. And Kenyon, you laugh at me when I say surround young talent with veteran leadership, but how much does Carson Wentz make this year? And look at their team.
Yeah, not a lot of money.
So.
It's an interesting thing, but again, to your point though, right? Which is, I think the position that Seattle is in is when these young quarterbacks, talking about money, it is a really interesting discussion. When these young quarterbacks do play well and their rookie contracts run out, and then you do have to pay them. If you're paying money in other places, somebody's going to take a L. Now, for Seattle, they decided to put their money with the defense and Russell Wilson, and you see what happens. He's now the 2017 version of Fran Tarkenton. What are the Eagles going to do in 3 years? What are the Houston Texans going to do in 3 years? Remains to be seen. We talked about the Arizona Cardinals and Carson Palmer. They got blasted this weekend, both literally and figuratively, by the Los Angeles Rams, 33-0.
Who's Rams?
It's my chaining day.
Carson Palmer, though, Dunzo, broken left arm for the season. At the beginning, coming into the season, there were whispers of retirement with both Carson Palmer, Larry Fitzgerald. Just today, report came out that Bruce Arians had confided into folks close to him that
home to Chicago,
that he was going to retire at the end of the season. He's had some health issues. Question I got for you guys is, listen, you still got David Johnson, who's talented. They traded for AP. They've got talent on the defensive side. Chandler Jones, who they just paid, Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson. Is it time to rebuild? Or do you reload?
First thing you do is apologize wholeheartedly to Larry Fitzgerald for wasting his time.
Twice.
And then you draft a QB.
And
sign Kirk Cousins.
And it's a year too late because they could have traded up one spot and got Deshaun Watson.
They got Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes.
Was it one spot?
One spot.
Yeah, one spot. And instead they Steve Keim stood pat. He told Deshaun Watson, if you're there when we pick at 12, you're ours. But they stood pat. So there's that.
Kev? I think they have to rebuild. And to honor Larry Fitzgerald, I propose a trade. I will send Devin's firstborn and some crab cakes to Arizona for Larry Fitzgerald so he can come to Baltimore.
Your firstborn.
And maybe help us. Maybe help us.
My
but no, in all
firstborn.
seriousness, let Larry get a chance to finish his career contending for a championship. I think their experiment is done. If you look at what they're facing in that division, the Rams have leapfrogged them. So I think they got to start over from square one, especially if Arians plans on leaving.
Really, the call is to start over when this upcoming free agency, you've got Drew Brees, you've got Kirk Cousins, you've got some big name quarterbacks that are going to be out there available, and I think we all agree they're a quarterback
Drew Brees
away.
help, though? I mean, like he's on the tail end. Like you'd have to do the same thing in a year or two.
Yep.
We know where Kirk Cousins is looking.
Wait, Kirk Cousins.
He's a free agent, but he's not a free agent.
All right, he is talent deprived over there.
Who?
Kirk Cousins.
Oh, yeah, we saw that Monday. Joe Thomas, and we talked about it earlier. First of all, golf clap for Mr. Joe Thomas. Seriously, man. This 11 seasons.
That's a soldier.
11 seasons, every snap at left tackle. 10,363 straight snaps.
I don't think people understand it. Every snap for a play
And he's getting hit every single play.
He initiates the play by hitting.
for the worst team in his entire career. Out with a triceps injury. I believe he popped the triceps, so he's done for the year. The question I have for you guys is, one, is this streak ever going to be broken?
No.
And is it more impressive than Cal Ripken's?
Yes.
I said that on a couple episodes ago. I think it is.
Yes.
I got my shit on today, but Cal was standing around waiting for somebody to hit the ball to him.
There's so many plays where he was just
Right. And then when he's not up to bat, he's sitting there waiting for 30 minutes. There's no 30-minute drive in the NFL.
and they can double switch him out if they want to.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Cal's he hasn't finished. He hasn't completed every game.
And also he's going up against one of the best athletes on the field every single play.
Right.
Someone coming off the edge.
The defensive end. Yeah.
And it's not like he wasn't a good player. That's the thing that gets
Yes.
me. He was a great player.
10,000 snaps. In
It wasn't his fault they
10,000
were
straight
sorry.
snaps. Yeah. That wasn't his fault.
He did the best he could.
Yeah.
Peter King put out an interesting stat on Twitter. In 2016, just 2% of NFL players played every snap in 2016.
Him and who?
Right. Joe Thomas did that for 11 or 10 seasons.
Yeah.
Impressive.
It's more than impressive. It is freaking amazing, and it's not talked about enough because he plays for the Cleveland Browns.
Imagine how many snaps he would have done if they weren't 3 and out the whole time.
Or maybe he would have got hurt sooner. Maybe he would have got hurt sooner.
Wow. Les. Finally, in our hot topics, the Indianapolis Colts reported last week Andrew Luck. He had a setback. And they're not ready.
You going to do?
They're not ready to put him on. They're not ready to put him on IR. And I just want to put something out here. And I mentioned it. I mentioned it to Omar a few days ago. The Indianapolis Colts right now, they're 2-5. Their 2 wins are against San Francisco and the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
Suffice to say, they're a bad team. All right. Andrew Luck, 3 playoff appearances. His record is 43-27. However, he hasn't played a full season since 2014. His completion percentage, his touchdown interception ratio, his passer rating are all on par with Andy Dalton, Alex Smith,
Buffalo Bill,
and Sam Bradford. What I propose and what I think should happen, and the question I put to you guys is, I think Indianapolis, they need help all over the field. They have the potential to get a Herschel Walker deal with Andrew Luck. I think they should cut their losses and move on. Question I have for you guys. Do you hold with Andrew Luck? Do you wait for him to come back? Or do you rebuild and blow it up and start over?
If they can get a Herschel Walker deal for him, yes. But I don't think they can.
I think they absolutely.
Really?
Who's the taker?
Yeah, who's the taker for somebody who obviously has injury issues?
Who hasn't been healthy for 3 years?
Like you said.
Yeah.
Hey, Jacksonville. We got 19 cornerbacks over here. all they need is a quarterback. A team like Jacksonville would do it.
But I would actually go the opposite route because of that. Like, people are going to be looking at his injury history and that trash line that they had never addressed, of why he keeps getting hurt. I would seriously consider sitting him for the rest of the year, even though that is not said that they're going to do that.
Right.
I would basically audition Brissett so he can shine, so he can get that Matt Castle type deal and look. And then get some stuff for him and let Andrew get healthy.
Yeah, exactly. Because on top, I agree with you. On top of that, because if they're going to lose the rest of the games, they're going to have a 1 or 2 pick.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the 1 or 2 pick, you can package that pick and get 2 or 3 picks, probably 3 picks, and then if you can package Brissett, you can get 2 or 3 picks for him.
I see about 5 teams that could use Brissett.
So if you can get a total of
Wait, how you packaging your first round pick this year? What are you saying? I wasn't following your
in the
your package of
draft
picks.
next year, next
Right.
year's draft,
Right. They're
So
gonna have a high pick.
Move down.
Yeah, like
Flip back, trade back.
So you flip that pick for 2 or 3 picks. Then you flip your backup quarterback for 2 or 3 picks. Now you got
so pull a Trubisky.
so you
That's what you're saying.
yes. So now you got 5 picks and you still have your quarterback.
You still have your quarterback. Because
I think.
go
Oh,
ahead,
go
Kev.
ahead.
Go ahead, Kev.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I agree. I think they should, but the way Indy sticks behind their quarterbacks, I don't think they will. And not speaking from experience, but if you're gonna suck this long for somebody, literally suck for luck, they better ride this thing out. And I think they will.
We're gonna move past.
It was going to a dark.
It was going to a very dark place.
In a dark place.
We've got to get to our game picks and our fantasy recommendations real quick. Here we go. Minnesota and Cleveland. It is the matchup at Twickenham Stadium. The final matchup. Thank you. I know I wasn't saying. What is it?
Twickenham.
Twickenham.
Should have stayed in shortage a little bit longer.
At Twickenham Stadium. Minnesota Vikings, Cleveland Browns. UK fans, we're sorry. We apologize on behalf of the NFL.
The 4th straight one.
This is the 4th straight trash one. You can book it. I don't believe anyone's taking Cleveland, correct?
Nah.
No one?
Nope.
No one?
That's dead.
Moving on.
I don't think the nerds are. I will say this though. I don't think the nerds are resting easy in Cleveland. The D Podestas and the Sashis and the number crunchers. You got Carson Wentz with what he's doing. Deshaun Watson what he's doing. Somebody's got to pay the piper, is what I'm saying. All right, Houston and Seattle, which I think probably is the best game on the docket this weekend. Russell Wilson is 11-0 against the AFC at home. Houston's coming off of a bye. Who you got, Kev?
2 black quarterbacks. I go with the home team, Seattle.
Redo.
Houston.
I wanted to pick Houston.
Yeah.
But Seattle at home.
I'm picking Houston.
Right?
Russell Simmons.
Hey, Dame. Chill out, Dame.
Running for his life.
Yes, but there's some injuries over there.
There are some injuries. I like Houston coming off of a bye, though. Deshaun Watson's not going to be phased by playing
What's
in
Seattle's
Seattle.
record at home
First
in
of
the
all,
last 5
no.
years?
Let's look at Seattle's pass defense. Let's look at it. They're 25 in the league right now.
Not as good, right? Not as good. And Deshaun Watson's not going to be worried about that rush. Yeah, I like Houston. Pittsburgh at Detroit. Since 2012, the Lions are 5-0 after a bye. However, Detroit hasn't beaten the Steelers since Ben Roethlisberger's been quarterback. So something's got to give. Les, what is it?
Pittsburgh over Detroit.
Pittsburgh over Detroit. Dev.
This is a game the Steelers win down the stretch. Point blank.
Redo.
Just to piss them off, Juju with 2 touchdowns.
Juju on that beat. Kev.
Steelers.
Was that everybody on the Steelers?
Hey, that was hard, wasn't it, Kev?
That means the Lions are going to win.
Hey, I'm taking the Lions. Shit.
that was rough.
I'm taking
Have
the
Martavis Bryant. I'm picking the Steelers.
I'm taking the Lions. Yeah.
Did you just change that?
No, I didn't make a decision until right then.
Because you know what that means when we go all in.
Yeah, we going all in. I'm going the other way. I'll take the Lions. All right, fantasy recommendations, and we get out of here. Once again, a reminder, follow us everywhere on social media. Our handle is @TheLeagueAM. Kev, give me your fantasy recommendations.
I got MVP candidate Carson Wentz against San Francisco. CJ Anderson bounces back against the Chiefs. And Julio Jones, he has to get the ball against the Jets.
Fredo.
I got Wentz, Joe Mixon versus the Colts, and DeAndre Hopkins versus that 25th ranked Seattle defense.
As soon as you said Wentz, Dev looked at me like,
I think there's a trend.
There's definitely a trend.
Okay, so
Wentz?
we got Wentz.
We got This is how you close the show.
I have AJ Green.
All right.
And I also have Shady versus the Raiders.
Okay.
I got two of the killer bees, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell,
Yep.
and
Carson Wentz. Wins. All right, Le'Veon Bell, and
Shout out
it's
to
fitting that we're all picking the same players because in our season record, folks, you need to check out our website. The race is tightening up.
Yeah.
I had 13 wins last week.
So did Omar. Hey, the worst record was 10-5.
The worst record was 10-5. So I picked Le'Veon Bell as well, but I got Cam Newton and Devin Funchess on the double up going against that bad Tampa Bay defense. We're going to get out of here. We will see you next week. UK folks, enjoy that final game. Cheerio.
Ravens Thursday, bitches.
Diddy, holla at your boys.
7 names, no games as I run it down the line. We got Kenny Ken, put 100 on the tees with the streak for the cash. He ESPN. Seth Curry with the shot. The prodigy. In reality, he's more like Seth, but he's all we got. Up next is Gentleman Jack, better known as Junior Blue. We told him not to do it anyway, but he did what he do. To his right is Devin, that dude, L-Dad or Dirt Ass Dan. Just don't ask him a question, cause then he'll answer your question with another question, and then he'll add another question on top of that question. Damn. And I'm Red O, the Buck Wild Problem Child.
Flow butter, aka John Cutter.
It's the league ambassadors, and we playing to win. At the 2-yard line, and make no mistake, we running it in.